Year by the Sea is based upon a New York Times best-selling memoir by a Cape author named Joan Anderson. What's amazing about her film, or I'm sorry, you'll edit me, right? Okay. What's amazing about her story is she actually wrote it, and it was rejected by 37 publishers before it was finally picked up. And it was this little book that nobody had really heard much of, and then suddenly Oprah caught wind of it. And she went on Oprah's show, and shortly thereafter it was a New York Times best-selling memoir, which was amazing. But outside of that, I think what helped her book grow is the word of mouth. I mean, we've heard so many stories as we've gone around the country with this film from women who have been touched by her book and her message that it's never too late to reclaim your life, that they've passed their loved books on to friends and family, and they've bought multiple copies to pass along to everybody. It's changed lives and given women the freedom, really, to rediscover who they are after, for many of them, a lifetime of caring for everybody else but themselves. So Joan encourages everybody to, dig deep and answer the question, who am I beyond the roles I play? To sort of find joy, right? It's like we can't support other people if we don't feel supported or we don't fill ourselves up. So that's the message of her book, and that's the message of our movie as well.
Yeah, cool. Who was it that picked up the book, they saw the book?
Oh, so Alexander Janko, he's a writer, director, composer. He sort of happened upon the book on his kitchen counter, and it was this dusty, coverless, hardcover book. And his wife at the time had picked it up at the dump. Apparently they have a book swap at the dump, and she brought it home and just threw it on the counter, and he picked it up and he opened it up and read the first line, which is the decision to separate seemed to happen overnight. And he's a sucker for opening lines, as we all are, and he was sort of hooked by it. He was drawn into it, and he honestly didn't put the book down until he was done with it. And he was really moved by Joan's honest exploration of herself and her struggle to find herself outside of relationship and within relationship too. So he tracked down the author. I think that day, he tracked down her agent, who tracked down the author. And a couple days later, he was on Cape Cod. He was living in more inner Massachusetts at the time. Came out to Cape Cod, and Joan, it's hilarious when she tells the story because she says she didn't expect to talk with him more than like a half hour. And they ended up spending about 12 hours together, and they went everywhere, all over Cape. She showed him everything, and by the end of it, they were friends. And so she said, absolutely, I would love to give you the rights to the book. And he promised her, he said, I care about your journey and your story, and honestly, this is your life, so I won't do anything that doesn't feel comfortable to you. Because you have to, when you convert a memoir, which is a very internal message and story, to a visual medium of a film, there are some changes you have to make, or else it's just really wordy and people are just talking the whole time, which isn't helpful at all. So every change that was made, every augmentation, every sort of character development and character addition, Joan was always on board with it.
Yeah. Did you how did that work further down the line? Did you consult with her in terms of, even casting? Was that?
I just want to pause. Is there a way to hide that wire?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can pull it.
Can we go
We can
on?
redo.
As long as it's adequate for the road.
Do you want me just to put
Yeah,
it?
do you want to just drop the? Yeah. there
Yeah,
we
I
go.
can do that.
That would work. We're still going, right? Yeah.
That better?
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, Joan, Joan was always there as a cheerleader. In terms of developing the script, she was on board and always gave feedback and thoughts clearly about where we were going to do our locations. She really believed in Wellfleet being our main town because it's this beautiful, sort of untouched fisherman feeling epicenter of Cape. So we ended up going there, and she was on set almost every day that she could be. She actually makes a couple cameos in the movie as well, in this exact spot in Larry's PX. In one of she's in the background, and you have to really be looking for her. But she's still there. She's still with us. She's basically become our surrogate mother. Yeah.
Is she on Cape full time?
She is, yeah. She, as in the book, as in the movie, she went out to Cape Cod to sort of reclaim her life and rediscover herself. She never left. So
So I guess talk maybe more about the characters in the film and some insight onto their story specifically. I don't know if you want to share any of that.
well, one of the most important relationships that is in the book and also in the movie is that between Joan Anderson and Joan Erickson. And Joan Erickson was the wife of the famed psychoanalyst Erik Erikson, who coined the term identity crisis. And so Joan, while she was in the midst of an identity crisis, stumbles upon this sort of mysterious older woman in the fog on a jetty, and they became fast friends. And Joan Erickson became Joan Anderson's mentor for the rest of her life. And that's a very strong relationship that we explore in the film. Mentoring is a really important part of this film as well. Men and women, but particularly in our film for women, helping bring sort of the next generation up and helping pass along your wisdom to those who might be struggling or just in the life change.
Yeah, it's cool. What was so the director again is
Alexander, yeah.
And he wrote the screenplay as well.
He did, yeah.
So
And he did the music.
And he did the music.
Yeah.
That's his background. I saw it online. His background was
Yeah,
in music composing.
absolutely. He was a composer in Hollywood for, 65 major motion pictures.
Yeah,
And then he ended up doing the score for My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
Oh wow.
which, was amazing. And
So we're like as a guy too, and it's an interesting. He picked up this book. It's obviously like you say, it reaches a lot of women, but he picked it up and it meant something to him, and that must be a cool voice as well, coming from a man. But he's seeing this
I was
perspective.
curious about that.
yeah, well, one of the best things that we heard from somebody at the end of one of our film festivals, it's a woman who was explaining what her husband felt. And he said, it's not a woman's story, it's a universal story. And I know that Alexander Janko really tried to bring in the male's perspective, and Michael Christopher, who plays Joan's husband, does a wonderful, wonderful job in creating another sense of transition. Men and women, we all go through times in our lives when we have to make changes, and oftentimes that empty nester moment is one of the biggest ones. So I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about how a man can relate to this. Like you say, it's sort of about women finding themselves at this point in their life, like midlife crisis, whatever.
Right.
But how a man can have a takeaway from that as well. And
For sure. Yeah. I think that it's about finding yourself, but it's also redefining your relationship later in life. As an empty nester, you don't have kids holding you anymore together. You don't have the routine of school or what have you.
Right.
And that really is part of this story too. It's just redefining and reclaiming the relationship that you had with your spouse.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So how did you find your way into this? Do you know?
Oh, well.
Alex and-
So Alexander Janko and I met 7 years ago. We started working on a completely different project. We started working on a musical together. He's the composer and I'm the librettist, and so this was just one of the many things that he'd already had sort of in the bucket and started working on, and it just sort of floated to the top of all the projects, and so we started working a little bit more on this one, and we held a reading in Cape Cod on April 1st after a huge nor'easter, just tons of snow, and women came from as far away as Michigan just to hear the script read aloud. So we knew there was an audience for the film. We started talking to a lot of women who'd been touched by Joan's book, and they all just wanted something. I mean, there are a lot of movies out there, but there are not a lot of movies that are made for women of a certain age. Our film doesn't have anything exploding. It doesn't have anything gratuitous. It's a very subtle, sort of personal story, and it's a journey of self. And we just have found that there's a dearth of that out there in terms of films. And another thing that's amazing about our film is, a lot of films that are directed toward an older audience, it's about someone has cancer or someone's dying, and it's trying to realize the life that you have left because you're dying. And our film doesn't have that. Our film is about just living and learning how to transition into a new way of living, a better way of living, and coming back into ourselves, as opposed to realizing, oh shoot, we only have so much time left. We all know we only have so much time left, but our film doesn't sort of hit you over the head with it,
Yeah, it's got a sense of realism, which is kind of nice. It's not, you're not trying to blow it into something that it isn't. So people can relate to it, I imagine, because it's not a unique story that only happens to a few people. There's a lot
Exactly. And I know there are a lot of people that are out there suffering from disease and what have you, but that shouldn't be the motivation to examining your life and finding joy and growing. Change is inevitable, and one of the things that Joan really likes to talk about are the tides, and that's something that she really learned about while she was here on Cape Cod. Is she likes to say she was an ebb tide, right, which doesn't really go anywhere, and then low tide when she really sort of went into herself, and then high tide is at the end of it all, after all of that sort of struggling and working through who it is to be me and how is it that I can be happy, to reap the rewards of that. And really, at the end, it's about that. It's about finding the joy within ourselves and bringing that into life.
How about being on? So how much of the film is shot on Cape? Where else is it shot?
It was shot 100% on Cape Cod.
I was working on Cape Cod and just. Are you from?
I'm not from Cape Cod, no. I'm actually from Indiana.
Okay.
So it was sort of my year by the sea when I was making the film. No, we shot for 22 days on Cape, and the Cape was amazing. I mean, truly amazing. So Joan lives here. She has a lot of friends here and a lot of people that are supportive and want to see our film succeed. So we got locations for free. We had just people that brought food to us during pre-production. I mean, every step of the way, just remarkable people have come on board to help buoy us and usher us forward. So it was a very supportive environment. And, we shot off-season, which was really helpful. We knew that we had to get out of here before the season started. So it was an April to May shoot. And it was funny because it was in 2015, so there was this crazy winter. I mean, just so much snow. But what was beautiful about it is, so Alexander would go out every morning, because we basically lived on Cape from January once we knew we were once we got our funding and we knew it was a go. We kind of moved here, and every morning he would go out, because he knew it's a year by the sea, we had to capture all the seasons. He would go out with his GH4 camera and get B-roll of birds, of seals. I mean, we probably have a National Geographic on Cape Cod also, the added version of Year by the Sea. And he actually used that in the film. So a lot of those winter transition scenes where you actually see the seals, and he captured a lot of the winter stuff himself, because we knew coming into it that we wouldn't be able to get it. Though we were a little afraid in May, when there were still huge piles of snow, that we actually wouldn't have spring. But it was a very lucky time for us. We ended up getting a little winter and a little spring too. So
beyond the B-roll, you guys fake all, like, the entire almost year. We don't know the movie exactly.
Yeah.
But you fake it within those 2 months, like that shooting period, to kind of like.
Well, yeah, in those 22 days, it was 22 days, right? Not even a month. We insert the B-roll, and there's other ways that you can make it look like a certain season. We didn't have to come bring out like snow blowers or anything. Luckily, we had all of that great snow footage from the Cape Northeastern, and then we did really honestly capture that transition of the seasons, and there were blooms and things were coming out, and
How did your actors ever have to go swimming in that?
There's a swimming scene. There's a lot of behind the scenes story about the swimming scene. We tried. We knew that it was freezing, and we weren't gonna throw Karen into the water. We had a stunt double for some of the filming in like a nude bodysuit, what have you. We ended up not using that footage. and we actually had Karen climbing out of the water. So we had all this hot water standing by, or not hot, but warm water standing by, so that as soon as she got out, she'd be doused in warm water. It was probably not her favorite day on set. We didn't end up using that footage either. It's funny, we came back and did some pickup shots in the fall, and that's when actually we were able to get into the water.
It's freezing cold.
Yes, though I must say, we got into the water and it was right after like a big YouTube video of a shark jumping out of Chatham Harbor, capturing a seal in midair, and we're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How about the actors and actors? Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Oh yeah, so the film stars Karen Allen, who people often remember from Raiders of the Lost Ark. The younger generation remembers her from Sandlot as the mother. We have Yannick Bisson, who is this huge Canadian star on a show called Murdoch Mysteries, which is sold like around the world, but for some reason people in America don't know him yet. Esapatha Murkison, who people remember from Law and Order. She was Lieutenant Van Buren. She was on it forever. She's now in Chicago Med, and she's hilarious and brilliant. And then Michael Christopher, who plays Robin, the husband, and he's a force to be reckoned with. He's amazing. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. He actually also just did the libretto to an award-winning musical about a boxer, but as an actor, I mean, he's just a force, and he's currently on Mr. Robot. And then we have Celia Imrie, who has been in so many different things, but most known for Best Exotic Marigold Hotel 1 and 2, Calendar Girls. She's this great British actress, though you wouldn't be able to tell in the movie because she hides her accent. So yeah, we had a stellar cast, and what was amazing too is, so we stayed at Anchorage on the Cove on Cape, and they were so kind into letting us, rent all of them. And each actor had their own little cottage, and they would come over at night, and we would have dinner for them, and they would share and get to know each other, so that the energy and the friendship that they created off screen really was brought to the screen. And I guess that's really unusual. Actors come in and they have a one day of shoot, and then they go, and sometimes they don't even meet the co-stars that they are having in the movie. So I think, from what I understand, it was a really special experience for them too. And Alexander Janko wanted them to get into the mindset of the Year by the Sea by living by the sea. So I mean, it was a beautiful opportunity.
That was the first time we went to Anchorage on the Cove, and it's gorgeous there.
Yeah.
I didn't know it opened up like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No, it really is. And each cabin is they're all different. So they're all their own little. We picked who would fit best in which one, and
it's like you say, it's a good way to get your mindset around the film you're making.
Yeah, and it was perfectly located too, because we filmed in Wellfleet, we filmed in Eastham, we filmed in Brewster, we filmed in Orleans, and we filmed in Chatham. And you don't want to move your company too often because it's really expensive and time consuming. So we would do chunks in each place. And Anchorage, just being south of Eastham, sort of north of Orleans, I don't know which town it technically lands in, but it was a good place to hold them. Yeah.
What's one of the more difficult shots that you guys were trying to get and did get, or the most satisfying?
Oh, so what's amazing? One of the most amazing things is the one day of our shoot we needed fog. That's when Joan meets Joan on the jetty. Was the one day we actually had fog. I mean, it was amazing. We had the fog machines all lined up. We had everybody all ready, but when we got on set, we were just like, oh my God, this is so incredible. And we were sort of gifted that way in a lot of different things. We had one scene where the two leading ladies are on top of the lighthouse, and that would not have happened if it was any windier that day. It was rainy that day. Like, there were so many things that had to happen and fall into place. And being a 22-day shoot, I mean, we're like boom, 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 boom. Especially as an indie film, trying to do as much as we did, shooting on water. For example, we had to work with the tides, and the weather worked out for us. But it was the foggy day that was a blessing and a gift for sure.
So I remember the scene from the trailer when they first meet and she's like kind of dancing. So
Yeah.
it's all natural.
Well, I mean, we ultimately, because it takes a while, we ultimately augmented with some fog. But that morning, if you see her rowing in the movie,
Wow.
it was thick too.
So cool.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else if you want to talk about any other points.
Okay, so let's see. So I guess one of the most satisfying things about our film is watching people watch it, hearing them laugh and hearing them cry and hearing them just relate to the story and the message, and then come out afterward. So many people walk out of the film looking rejuvenated because our film is, you know, a feel-good film. It does give you hope that there is still time. Our tagline is, "It's never too late to reclaim your life." And that really is the message that we're trying to portray for every gender, for anybody at every stage of life. And it seems to really be resonating. I mean, we've had women and men even, you know, come up to us and thank us greatly at the end of it, saying, you know, movies aren't made like this. They don't speak to the soul and also, you know, speak to something relatable. So that's the most gratifying thing, I think, is that we made something relatable and real that isn't really out there these days.
Yeah, super cool. That
So-
you believe in this message, which is great.
Yeah, well, and it just you know, and we've had a lot of people say it's helped their relationship. You know, men, and you'll know when you see it. You know, men will walk out and be like, am I that bad? You know, because you know he transitions over time, but you know in the beginning it's rough. Their relationship is rough, and so it's opened up a lot of dialogue between couples as well to try and reevaluate their relationship and check in and make sure that you know things are okay, because a lot of people are in this stage in life that come and see the film. But remarkably, you know, we have a lot of younger people that come and see it and either see their mother or their father in it or see it as, you know, a reminder not to let them fall into a rut in their own lives at some point, but to keep moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess since we just have you at the Cape Cinema, anything, since it's on Cape, do you have any?
Well, so we held a benefit screening last year for We Can, because so Joan Anderson was one of the founders of We Can. There's a bunch of women that came together and created this organization that supports women on Cape, and we wanted to honor that. So we actually have We Can in the movie. So we held a benefit screening for them at the Cape Cinema, and you know it's just such a beautiful theater, and it's large and open. And Eric was just he had just closed it to rejuvenate the seats or replace the seats, and he said that, you know, I want your film, and we're like, okay, well it's a good fit, you know, coming home on Cape in the place where we held the benefit last year. It's really great. And another thing I just wanted to mention, so Alexander Janko really wanted to give back to the community that's been so supportive of us. So as we went to different locations and people came on board to help us out, we kept the signage. So he would write the signage and the places into the script. So Larry's PX in the movie is Larry's PX. We didn't change it. Hatch's Fish Market in Wellfleet is Hatch's Fish Market in the movie. You know, because that adds to the sort of authenticity of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. We're doing another project about local farm movement on Cape Cod, and it's kind of all tied in about trying to help the community. And local film is in the same way helping the community too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Keeping it in.
It was cool.
It'd be great advertising for all these places that.
Exactly. I mean, there are so many people that have already asked us online. I'm sorry. Don't know if that's, so we've had a lot of people ask for our location list, so that they can see the movie and then go actually see all the different places that we filmed it. So exactly. You know, Joan holds retreats for women on Cape Cod and in Iona, Scotland, and she sort of roped the movie into her messages too and her experience. So